Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George. And for our guests watching us from around the world, Prince George is the center of British Columbia, Canada. So it's a beautiful day here. It's fall, and we have a very, very special guest today, Krystal. Did I say that correctly? Woolley. Hi, Krystal. Tell us a little.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you located, Krystal?
I'm located in a little historic town, Granbury, Texas.
Granbury, Texas. So where is that in Texas, vis-a-vis Houston or Dallas or?
About an hour and 15 minutes west of Dallas.
West of Dallas, huh? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. You're an entrepreneur. You are especially specializing in HR, and you started a company called NoveltyHR just recently. So you're a very active entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about your past and what you're doing.
So I've been working in human resources for almost 20 years now. And working with various different types of companies. And so I worked for one company called Tire Profiles, and they're like, you have a knack for being an entrepreneur. So I decided to go out on my own, knowing that.
So and you started your company after 25 years working for somebody else, with Novelty Inc. Last year in 2022.
Yes, at the end of last year.
Okay, and then you work on an international level, or is it more? Yeah, you do, right?
I do. My clients are spread out all over the place. Ukraine, UK, Canada, and of course the United States.
Right. And so, and mainly all on the internet or online a lot?
Quite frequently, yes.
Right. And so you're training, were you from Texas or from the town where you are now? Were you born there in that region?
I grew up all over Texas and California, but Texas has always been my home.
Right.
Once a Texan, always a Texan.
Right. Yeah, we do a lot of business, actually. I have a lumber company, as you likely already know, and we do a lot of our business in Texas, actually, and I go there not all that often, a couple of times a year, but I used to go there a lot to develop our business. So you got your training in Texas. So did you do your training? I looked at your bio, and it was a specialty on the HR side, right?
So my training was in California.
Right.
Primarily, and my degree and specialty is in organizational leadership.
Okay.
With an emphasis in HR.
Okay, and organizational leadership, what does that mean from a corporate perspective?
Essentially, I look at the corporate structure and leadership, and I kind of break things down on more of a simplistic level, so that if you're looking at an org chart, you're able to see whether it's who people are reporting to, how they are reporting to, and I simplify that process for companies. So yeah, that's really kind of where that comes in.
Right. And again, that's very important, because I've worked in companies, my own companies. I've been in business. I'm 83, actually. And so I've had a business. Originally, I'm from Holland. I was born in Holland and came to Canada when I was 24 with the dream of building a lumber mill, because my dad was in lumber, my grandfather was in a master carpenter, and I wanted to start my own company and start from the beginning, from the bottom up. So I came here when I was 24, with very little actually, and couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job, and with the idea of building a lumber mill. And it took me until 1975, when I started a company called Brink Forest Products, that is now part of about 7 or 8 other companies that are all under the umbrella of the Brink group of companies. So we've grown quite substantially, and so I'm very aware of companies that are structured correctly, especially once they expand, to make sure that the operational structure is correct and the reporting structures are correct, and again, very, very important for companies.
And what I've noticed, that it's okay to have a really flexible structures or small, but as you grow and you scale, it's important to have a plan for what that structure looks like. And so as you're growing and increasing employees, increasing customer base, you're able to not go through so many of those pains that you see so many companies going through.
Yeah, and that is not uncommon, as you obviously, Valdez, that's your specialty, and I've been involved in consulting myself as well, in addition to having the companies, but that's what I find a lot of times, that companies, right-sizing a company is very critical in terms of, being too small is not good, to being too big is not good either, and to kind of, as you go from small, medium size to growing a company, even then it becomes more important to have that structure correct. And if you plan to expand, is to lay out the structure that it should be, and how the reporting structure can go with the company as it changes. A lot of times what I found is that the overhead or the management structure becomes too big and not always well structured in terms of reporting or being accountability for cost or capital investment and all the other kinds of things. Absolutely critically important.
Yes, sir.
So you do consulting as well as part of that, not just the HR side, but also consulting in those areas, right?
Absolutely.
And again, where do you find your clients?
95% of my clients are referrals. Rather it's through networking or through just clients saying, hey, look, check her out. She's done X, Y, and Z for me. So right now, as I'm growing and I'm scaling, I don't have a huge marketing budget that I work with, just because, one, it's not that crucial yet. But two, it's word of mouth works.
Yeah. And to develop a niche is important too, right?
Absolutely. I'm still working on the niche aspect of things as I'm growing, but doing with what I'm doing with the different companies that I'm working with and the various different problems, I'm just learning that being a generalist is okay.
Yeah. And then it's not a particular segment of industry, but rather broader than that, right? In your case.
Absolutely. And Texas is so large on the various different industries that we offer. Where I lived in California, it was highly oil and gas motivated.
Right.
And here it's just not the case.
Right.
And so it's helpful to be in an area where you're able to expand and broaden those horizons and then get the really fun experience of being in those various different industries and learning so much about it.
Right. Yeah, we find, and you probably find that as well in our companies, one of the most difficult times to find the right people and the right positions was already always difficult for us, not only our company, but in Canada or British Columbia, has been to find management right from supervision to superintendents to many different management levels has been always difficult here, and even more so post-COVID. It has become even more difficult, and so we're always looking far and wide for specialties, but also for senior management. And you know, so we go in a lot of cases even international if we have to, and although that sometimes creates issues with bringing them into the country a lot of times, which is difficult. I don't know if that applies to your clients or the United States in general, in particular Texas. I know there are a lot of people coming across the border from South America or through Mexico, but not so much in the management area, but I don't know that.
If I've learned anything, skill set is 40% and attitude and aptitude is the 60%. And knowing that, you know, we have people from all over the place that can do the job skill-wise, but finding the right people with the right aptitude and attitude has been the bigger struggle.
Right. You may find this interesting is I have a sign here on sitting next to me. My employees gave that to me actually. When I came here in July of 1965, with one suitcase, 2 sets of clothes, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. But I had $25.47, and I had no job, and started then as a cleanup man. But what is more importantly underlying all of this, what I did have is I had attitude, positive attitude, avoid the negative. I had developed a passion, and then work ethic. I work harder than anybody around me, and I give it always 110%. And so I very much agree with you. So I'm not only looking for skill sets, I'm looking for those qualities in particular.
Those are great qualities. I love that sign, and that shows how you are as a leader for your employees to provide something like that to you, because most employers, the leadership, they don't receive things like that.
No, you know, and so that's very, very important, right? And then I don't know if I put another advertisement out in the last couple of days looking for a production manager in particular. And I'll show you a copy of the ad that we put out. You know, so I don't know if we have it here with us or not, but before the show is over, I'll show you the ad, and it kind of shows you in particular as how do we make it uniquely different in finding the skill sets that I think are very, very important. And we put that out, you know, throughout North America, around the world for that matter. You know.
That's good.
And then the other thing that, you know, so on the consulting side, so you just started your company recently, and you're still kind of developing your business plan as you kind of getting it on its way, and And then the internet is just amazing what it can do now. And we know that from podcasting, where as you and me are sitting here together, more or less, you from Texas and me from Central British Columbia, you know, it is just amazing to imagine that this will be seen around the world and is being looked at from around the world. And the technology is going faster and quicker, wider and wider, because I believe these concepts are relatively new. Like doing a virtual podcast. When I first started podcasting about 5-6 years ago, initially on a small basis, before COVID, that was not even thought about. It was mainly all, if you did podcasting, it'd be local, regional, and then more recently when we started podcasting from this location, is that I thought, you know, we did a lot of podcasting again in the region, but then I wanted to go the broader circle, because we do a lot of podcasting, maybe locate the studio in Vancouver. But then we discovered really that saying, no, we'll do it from here and we'll get good equipment and do virtual. And now what we do, we're podcasting people from all over the world, Sweden, Central Europe, Italy, France, Holland, obviously the United States, and from all over the world. And it's just beginning, in my opinion, Krystal.
You have a very large base and a very large reach with the different companies that you run, and how expanded that is. I mean, it just puts you in the right spot. This makes sense for you.
Yes, and then the other part about it is that I'm also an author, you know. So I did 3 books actually. I did one. You know, obviously starting with $25.47, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul. And then people said to me, you know, that I was so successful, and I didn't feel that way at all. I kind of felt like I had been a bit of a failure, because my education or my academic performance was not too good. I failed grade 3. And I failed grade 7 3 times. They said, what are we going to do with this guy, you know? So should we send him to the school of the mentally challenged people, or should we get him a job? Well, fortunately, they got me a job as a furniture maker, but I always kind of felt I had failed. And then that's why I started here with $25.47, because I knew I had the ability of doing it, and I had to prove to myself that I could start something from the ground up. And so even after about being in business and gradually building the business bigger and bigger, I didn't feel I had been successful. But people said to me, you should write a book about your life. And so I did that, finally started that about 6, 7, 8 years ago. And the first book that I wrote is Against All Odds. It's not about hurrah, hurrah, John. It's more to all the challenges on the way, and the falling down, standing up again, never giving up, attitude, passion, work ethic, right? And so it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And writing books is not easy, you know, and I say, because obviously English is not my first language, and then with grade 7, you know, amazingly, I'm a pretty good writer, and I always like to write. And then the other part that happened to me is that after I was here already for I came here when I was 24. After 34 years, when I was at 57, 1997, I walked into a store here and I found this book, And I don't know why. I opened the book and it was about ADHD. I had never even heard of it. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And so the book's title was Driven to Distraction. And, you know, and as I was sitting there, I went through the book, and the guy that owned the store said, oh, are we going to buy it or what? Right? So, not quite, but in any event, I bought the book. I wrote in it in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am. And because I was somewhat ashamed of it and was concerned about it, the more I learned about it, the more I read and went on Google, is the more I started to understand it, ADHD and the things around it. I had a family doctor that delivered our two daughters, and it was a personal friend. It took me 5 years. When I was 62, one day I went into his office and he said, John, why are you here? I said, I think I got ADHD. And so we looked at it together, and yeah, I do. You know, so, and the more I learned about it, the more I felt more comfortable about it, and the more I became convinced it's a superpower. And then I started to talk about it more in different presentations. I'm also a professional speaker, and started to include it in my presentations, and then felt I had to write the book about it, ADHD Unlocked, and thank you for showing it there right behind you, in fact, you know, and sharing it with the people that are friends, but also that what I became aware of, as you likely as well know, that the frequency of occurrence, I thought it to be, and a lot of other people thought it to be, was about 8%. I think it's more like 20%, if not more. And there is not a day that goes by that I don't encounter people that either have it in their family or in their surroundings. And then the other reason that I wrote the book, it's not only for people that have ADHD, but also people that have been affected by trauma, or for some reason or other than that, are slow learners, or are not comfortable in the traditional schooling system. And then in addition to all of that, that I believe that other people should read the book, not only mine, but other ones that are out there, is that because you meaning in a general sense, encounter ADHD either in your direct circle or your family or in friends or the people that you work, and you will encounter it. And people that have ADHD are somewhat different than, in a good sense, but are somewhat different. It's good to understand them and to know them.
I agree. If I've learned anything, and I've narrowed it down, people with ADHD have 7 superpowers. So, I mean, creativity, their high energy, tenacity, they're hyper focused, so they're able to really hone in on those specific projects. They can multitask better than the average I call neurodivergent person. And then crisis control, for example, like COVID. I mean, the people with ADHD, the professionals, management with ADHD were really able to kind of step up. Not saying that people without ADHD weren't able to do that, but you were able to see that on a regular basis.
Correct.
With those with ADHD.
Correct. And in fact, you know, coming back to you know, looking for a new manager of that we are looking for, the production manager. We're looking for people that have that skill sets that make that unique. And here you have the advertisement. Can you see it?
It's a little bit broken up on my end. Oh, there we go.
How do you like it?
I do like that. That's very good. That's a good advertisement. I like that a lot.
So what I'm saying, ADHD considered an asset, and that's how we look at it. Is their skill sets, rather than being, I've never seen anybody do that, but I did that. And so we will show that widely, because it is no longer something that we don't talk about. And amazingly, there's still a lot of people. It happens to me all the time that people said, oh, I've never said that to anybody, but I have ADHD. Or they say, you know, I feel ashamed about it. I really don't like to talk about it. I said, wrong, you know. So it's an asset. It's a superpower. And like you know, with the being a professional speaker, I'm not bragging here, and writing books, you know, and all those other things, and doing all the companies, doing the podcasting, and all the other things, I couldn't do it if it were not that I'm ADHD.
Yeah, no, that's to be able to do all those different things. That doesn't mean that you're not passionate about just one thing. You have various different passions, and
Exactly.
they're very important to you, and you use it. Not everybody can do that.
No, no, for sure. And that then being said as well, the amazing thing that I found, Krystal, is that it was about a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago, that if I was watching an U.S. show. We do a lot of that, actually, watching CNN and ABC and all the other ones, you know. So, but in any event, they mentioned that something that made sense to me, and I've encountered myself, but it really laid it out, is that of all the people that are working, up to 70% of them don't like their job. And of the 70%, maybe as high as 75% of the 70% are looking for another job. I say that's very unfortunate, but it's not unique, you know. And in fact, I wrote a book about that, you know, that finding your passion is critically important to your life. If you do things that you don't like all that much to different degrees, or feel you should have done something different, then it will affect your life and everything around you. And then find something that you would like to do in addition to or instead of the job that you have. So I felt I had to talk about that. So I wrote the book here, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And that just came out about in July, actually, this one, quite popular. And, you know, so, but it goes to that issue that you mentioned, is finding your passion. And so it interviews a number of people that even in during midlife, in the 40s maybe, or anywhere in life, they say, I didn't particularly like what I was doing. I always wanted to do this instead. So we'll change, you know, and or do that in addition to what you can do. And so, because there's nothing more important that you have that passion, because that will make you much more happier, more comfortable in the job that, or whatever you're pursuing, makes you happier. And so that makes the world more likable around you. And, you know, so even for me, you know, like I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm always in a hurry because I always think I'm late. And then saying, hey, John, then being said, are you living the dream? And are you doing, is what you're doing, is that your passion? Yes, it is. And yes, I am living the dream, even now at 83. Yeah, no question about it.
when you have employees or even yourself with passion, you put more thought, more effort. You're more engaged into what you're doing, and so makes time go by a lot faster. You know, life's a party whenever you're having fun,
Exactly.
but at the same time, you know, you're using those superpowers. You're able to get that hyper focused. You're able to be a lot more empathetic and so on. Whenever you're working with that, and that makes your work quality come out 10 times better than something that you're not passionate about.
Yeah, it's addictive, right? So that people like to be around people that are excited about what they are doing. I am, if I'm working at the mill or if I'm doing podcasting, all the things that I do, I'm usually very excited about it. You know, and writing books or giving presentations, and then I like to be busy. You know, so I'm a bit of a go-go individual, and I love that. And then staying fit is very, very important. Always has been very important to me. You know, we all commit to going to the gym. It usually takes, like in my case, it did. You know, when I was about 58, I had a scare that nearly killed me. I had diverticulitis that got out of hand, and you know, so I came that close. You know, so and up to then I didn't quite look after my health as well as I should have. Every year end, I make a commitment. I'm going to go to the gym, and then I do that for 2 weeks, and then find 100 reasons that I can't go. Right, and then it kind of disappears. So I changed then, and then started to. After I recovered, you know, I started going to the gym, hired a trainer, and you know, and after doing that for 6 or 7 years, by then I was in my 70s, and you know, one day somebody said to me, "Have you ever thought about competing?" And I said, "Me?" You know, and and I said, "Well, why not?" And it gives me a focus to, you know where I am going there, and started to focusing on training, and started competing bodybuilding and physique. So then placed second for bodybuilding, third in physique in northern BC, then provincially was third in physique, second in bodybuilding, and then competed in the nationals and the Arnolds.
Wow.
And then came COVID, and then so right now at 83 I'm training again, and then want to again compete on the nationals and then the Arnolds again. I told Arnold already I'm gonna be there when I made in 24. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow. I hope I'm half as spry whenever I get to that age. Oh my goodness. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Well, you know, it makes life interesting, right? And it's so precious to. That's another reason that I'm writing another book actually that comes out next June, and that is Living Young, Dying Old. And the point is, and the purpose of the book is to say, how can you, it's not the age that counts, it's the quality of life that counts. And if you, as early as you can, become more knowledgeable about how to preserve that precious body that we have, that is so forgiving, but how can we make sure that you stay healthy and fit along the way, and then everything is possible. I usually say I want to get to 120.
You'll get there. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So So again, a lot of the things that I've been doing and am doing now and going forward has been because of ADHD and that has become also a part of my life, that I'm not totally focusing on ADHD, but in my podcasting, you know, people with ADHD are very unique to me, and I do a lot of podcasting, being a guest, or podcasting as we do, Krystal, as well. You know, that I find it interesting to share our stories with the rest of the world, you know, and create a better understanding of the myths that are still out there, and you know, and are somewhat unfortunate. About a couple of months ago, I did a presentation, a keynote presentation somewhere, and the evening before, I was having dinner in the hotel, and some fella came up to me. I was sitting by myself and said, "I don't want to disturb your dinner, but can you talk to me before you go?" And I said, "Well, where are you sitting?" He said, "In the corner down there." I said, "Okay, I'll come down and see you." And so apparently he was a fella that I had sent a copy of my book, ADHD. And he said, "Thank you for your book," because he said, "I have a son that is 15 that was very troubled by ADHD, and you know, and was really worried about where it was going. So him and his son together read the book." And I said, "Isn't that amazing?" Really, you know. And there is still a lot of misunderstanding, or you know, are not getting the right information about it. It's better now than it was before, but there is still a lot of misunderstanding about it.
There's still a lot of work to do. I still believe, at least here in the States, there's the stigma that it's a young boy's issue. And reality is, I mean, it's an everybody issue. It doesn't matter what gender you are, especially women. I'm noticing it with women, even myself with ADHD. I wasn't diagnosed until about 2 years ago.
Right.
So with having ADHD as a woman, even many doctors will tell you that the medication is tested, geared towards men and boys, and they haven't developed it enough to really hone in onto women's receptors. Still a lot of work in progress. So it's important as we're growing and modifying our various different processes in life and in work to modify ourselves in order to kind of hone into our superpowers with ADHD.
No question about that. And then, you know, so like you got diagnosed 2 years ago. Did you always already think that, not always, but substantially before that you thought you may have ADHD, or how did you kind of discover it?
No, not at all. So I'd worked for a few different companies, and I had a repeated behavior of getting let go or laid off. But a couple of those companies, it was not a fit. You know, in the United States, we have at-will employment. It wasn't my work product. My work product was great. It wasn't my work quality. My work quality was great. But with being ADHD, I was really fast all the time. And not being diagnosed, I wasn't able to just stay on that one task. I wanted to have multiple tasks and jump from one to the other and communicate that way too.
Yeah, exactly.
So finally I'm like, something's got to give here. This isn't right.
Right.
And so I did a few questionnaires online, and then I was like, okay, this validates what I'm thinking, and I went and got a medical diagnosis.
Right. And they said you're ADHD.
ADHD, strong ADHD. So the difference is I wasn't hyperactive in comparison to my peers with ADHD. So I had a lot going on in my brain, but I wasn't super hyper all the time.
But part of that is, I kind of look at myself like I never knew that I was ADHD. I didn't even know what it was until I pick up that book, you know, written by, I think, Ned Hollowell, a medical doctor, Ned Hollowell, and I picked it up in 1997. And when I looked at the book and started to read it, and I said, oh my God, that's me. Now the interesting part, how the world goes in a circle, he contacted me here last week. He wants me to podcast him. Can you imagine? He's the guy that virtually changed my world, because up to that point, I had no idea, you know, of what made me. I felt I had failed in Holland. I failed grade 3, grade 7 3 times, and became a laborer, you know. But I knew I had the ability, and you know. But I struggled with that. Now, fortunately, I had a personality. I was always happy-go-lucky, even in spite of it all, and I lived in my own little world. But one of the things that I had a problem with is that, but it's interesting, if you look at ADHD, the foreword is written by Dr. Tracy Lotz, and she's a friend, but a medical doctor, emergency surgeon, ADHD, you know. So, and she will describe in there that it's all these squirrels running around in her brain, going this way, that way, all over the place. And so with me, that was very much the case. So I was very hyper and you know, to go, hyper for a long time, and always the same as you said. I can do this, that, do it all at the same time. But then a couple of things happened to me. If you say to me, what changed, is that what changed first for me, in 1997, I picked up the book in the store and said, oh my God, that's me. But in 1990, I had, up to that point already, I was a successful businessman. I had all these companies, and they said, oh my God, you're so this. I felt I had been a failure. Even then, I did still. And then I had difficulty interacting with people or talking to. I could maybe at my mill talk to 3 people at the same time. Anything beyond that was a problem for me, you know, because I didn't feel comfortable. And then one thing happened that changed my life. 2 things happened. One or 3 things. One, I went to Canada, and then the second one was that somebody dragged me virtually, talked me into, say, I want you to go with me to Toastmasters. You familiar with Toastmasters?
Very familiar, yes.
I said I hadn't got a clue. I said I have no idea what it is. Well, that's it. Go with me to Toastmasters. And I said, are they going to ask me questions? He said, no, you can just sit there and watch it. And I said, okay, well then, okay, I'll go with you. And then, so I was sitting in Toastmasters, and then halfway through the meeting, somebody says, and hey, John, tell us a little bit about you. And I said, oh my God, I'll never go back here, ever. You know, so the following week, I was not going to go back, but I did go back, and I stayed in Toastmasters for 10 years. And I became a DTM, which is a Distinguished Toastmaster, the highest level in Toastmasters. And, you know, and probably one of the most active speakers, not only in competition, but gradually worked into becoming a keynote speaker, have all kinds of trophies for speaking, something unimaginable really for me before that point of getting into Toastmasters. And then, you know, so, but a lot of people don't understand about Toastmasters is some people say it's all about speaking. No, it isn't. It is a part of it, but it's even more importantly become a good listener. And then being able to think on your feet and then organize that mentally in terms of, you know, responses that you, before I couldn't do that. I go all over the place, right? So that if I look at today, of all the people that I've seen, there is probably, and you probably will know this, that probably in North America in particular, but around the world, that is probably 450, 500,000 people actively in clubs right now as we speak. There's probably 5 trunk clubs here. I'm sure there is some in your town and all around you. Is that, and then there is probably 5 million people, if not 10 million, that have an exposure to it, and it has helped them to the different levels. If I look at myself and all the people that I've seen entering clubs that I was involved with in the district and in the region, I seldom, if ever, saw anybody as much of a basket case than me. I feared it. I did everything to avoid it, but it changed my life. And so that happened between 1990 and 2000. And then in 1997, obviously, the book, and all of a sudden I said, oh my God, that is me. And then hence, you know, and I'm not, I can speak to you about it, but I'm not saying hoorah, hoorah, John. That's not but the point. The point that I'm making is simply because of it, it allowed me to be more successful in my businesses, being more effective in communicating in all the things that I do, thinking on my feet, being a effective podcaster, and then you know, and then obviously becoming a writer as well. I was always a good writer, but that allowed me to, because in my books I'm a storyteller. That's basically who I am. But the point that I'm making, that ADHD, although it was something that affected me in terms of having confidence in who I was, I felt deep down I wasn't, but in terms of getting a career in Holland and then at some point get married and then buy a house, and then what they would do there is saying, okay, well, show me your diplomas. Well, I have no diplomas. So I had to start over new. And I did that by coming to Canada, then with nothing, my $25.47, and then build the companies that I did. But not only that, then did the other things relatively recently, actually. I started, you know, thought about writing a book, the first one, Driven Against All Odds. I thought about it for 20 years. It took me 80 years to live it. Thought about it for 20 years and then 2 years to write it. But, you know, and now obviously I'm working on my 4th book and the 5th one. And so it changed me there, then became a professional speaker, and then podcasting opened the door to the world. And so amazing, you know, so, but it was all of that, that if I had not gone to Toastmasters, it would not have given me the comfort of being able to be an effective communicator. And if I would not have found in 1997 in the book and saying, oh my God, that is me, between those things, it changed my life.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, with the businesses that you've owned and with all of the things that you've accomplished with ADHD, owning those businesses, have you worked with your HR department in order to drive your performance with ADHD in mind?
Interesting that you say that, actually. And when I started my company, I had no idea that I had ADHD, you know, so I already had it then, you know, for, there was 19, you know, so I was 62 when my doc gave me the information, but I already had started my company when I was 35, and so I did not have that in mind, and creating then the full understanding of it all, you know, doing my Toastmastering up to 2000, and then developing the understanding of ADHD is still relatively new to me, that I didn't publicly speak about ADHD all that much until about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And that, you know, because I was born in 1940 in Holland, Eastern Holland, during the war years, which were very difficult then. For my mom had 3 kids, I was the youngest, sister 1 year older, brother 2 years older. My dad was lost in Rotterdam. They didn't know, when they bombed it, they didn't know if he was dead or alive. And we saw far too much that we should not have seen. So I was affected by PTSD, and even later in life got counseling for the inner child, the fear of losing that one parent. And so the combination of all of that, I was kind of working my way through right up to probably relatively recently. And this book here, Against All Odds, did we send you a copy of this one?
Not that one. I have Passion. Have this one, and then I have this one right here.
I'm going to send you this one as well. You know, so this book, and so what I write about in this book in particular is that goes right through the whole thing, and seeing how I kind of evolved. And so the events that changed my life is going to Canada, starting with nothing, and proving to me that I could do it, and that I was equal to, not better than, but equal to everybody else, that I had good qualities, and that I could make my dreams come true. So, and then the joining Toastmasters had a major effect, and then obviously reading that, opening that book, Driven to Distraction, that kind of said to me, okay, all those combination of all of that, PTSD, inner child to a certain extent, I got counseling for that, then going to Toastmasters for 10 years, and then finding ADHD, that kind of changed me into, and that's really the point that I was going to make about, one of the points that I was going to make when you said that compared to friends that you know with ADHD that have all this hyperactivity, I did have that. But what changed me is likely 10 years of Toastmasters, where I can control that automatically to a certain extent. So, and then I've acquired the skill sets of being careful, being cautious, and being able to think on my feet, which if I normally would be sitting here with you and I think of myself before all of this happened, then as I'm sitting with you, all kinds of answers go through my mind. It is, and then I'm all over the place. Right? So, and so that's probably what I acquired from being ADHD, and I probably was one of the worst kinds of that, if there is such a thing as the worst kind. But you know, I'm now looking at it, and hence the advertisement that I showed you for a production manager. That's the first time that we did that. I said that a couple of weeks ago. I said, let's do that, because I want to take the stigma away from ADHD. This one will be all over the place throughout North America. where we are looking for somebody that ADHD is considered to be an asset. It is to me. I have to tell you a funny story about that actually. I hired a CFO for our companies, and we already were a pretty fair-sized company. So Chief Financial Officer, for our guests that don't know what the acronym means, but so it's a senior position, and so the fellow, first name was Sonny, and still is. He's still with me actually. It was about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I forget now, and so I interviewed him, and then we went back and forth over the couple of weeks and blah, 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 and do all the other things. Then I hired him, and so, and the first day on the job, he comes into my office and said, "Can I close the door? I have to tell you something." And I thought, okay. And so he said, "I want to be honest with you, and I felt that I have not told you that." And I said, "Okay, what is it?" So he started telling me that he has ADHD, and so I just let him talk, right? And he explained to me what it is and how it is and all and I was just kind of sitting there, and I put him through all the agony, probably just not nice, you know. So when he was done, I said, "Makes no difference to me because I'm ADHD." So I said, maybe I'll be an asset. So, you know, but that was 8 years ago. There's still the stigma, but the stigma is still there. And if you see the advertisement that I put, it likely will go, how do you call it, will go all over the world, is, you know, because at the first time it says it's an asset. That's how I view it.
It is. I mean, going back to the superpowers we were talking about before, I mean, if they demonstrate those particular qualities that you're looking for, then it's absolutely going to be your at best asset.
And I can make them anything because they have the abundance of energy and the ability to do the skill set. So it is an asset. There is no question about it. But I had not seen it before like that, and I said, I'm going to be the first one to do that. So we'll put it in there. It's a senior position in the companies, and we have a fair-sized company, and it will get the attention, and that's what the point that I want to make. It's an asset, and we believe that as a corporation, and we stand behind it.
It's fantastic. I have so many thoughts that kind of go along in my head, in my HR brain, whenever I'm looking at an ad like that. You know, I'm thinking, okay, here in the United States, if I see something like that, is that technically discrimination? Is it not? I wouldn't think so. You know, the other things that would go through my head would be, well, if it's ADHD, what skills are they looking for? What are those attributes? And, you know, on the application, do I need to put my ADHD superpowers? Or, you know, so many different things are going through my brain at that point.
And that's exactly, so great. And that's exactly what I want to have happen. Because if somebody call me about it and say, I don't know what to do, I say, I'll send you a copy of my book. You know, so, and then, you know, because I want to change, I'm not saying that is all the case, but I don't want it to be a liability. I want to have it as an asset. It is something that, you know, somebody that was blessed with ADHD, that it gives them certain qualities where before the stigma was that it's a disorder. Well, it isn't. You know, so it's a misstatement of fact, but it is what it is. But I say, no, I'm going to change that. I'm going to, at least from our perspective, say we consider it to be an asset.
It is. You know, it's not a disorder by any means. I get offended almost whenever people say, "Oh, well, you have a mental health disorder." No, I'm just neurodivergent.
Yeah.
You know, I'm different. It's part of me, just like my hair and skin and eye color. I mean, we're all different in some way. That's part of what makes me different.
And all beautiful. And that's another part that I'm saying to people, and young people in particular, male and female, is they're saying the way, what I believe is to be all individually special and beautiful in our own way as individuals. And we should be proud of who we are, not saying, oh, this is wrong, that is wrong. That be yourself, give back, be kind, and be ambitious, but at the same time, have that confidence about you are special. And that's the way I like to see them, you know.
That's fantastic.
Anything else comes to mind, Krystal?
You know what? I can talk about this topic forever, and I have a million different notes I could go through. Because I've got to have something here so that way I can remember. You know how ADHD works. Sometimes your brain just goes so fast you can't remember everything. And so,
I know.
You know, you're trying to make as many notes as possible and hope you don't forget that little thing. But here I am. I'm so happy to been able to be a guest speaker on your podcast, and I hope that, you know, I'm hoping that it adds value. That's all I can say, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you very much to be part of my guest, and I would like to stay in touch with you. Our podcast will come out tomorrow morning, and we'll get it to you right away, and then you know, show it to your people, and then from there, and then stay in touch with us. Watch our podcast, but also otherwise stay in touch. Make a note that 6 months from now, 8 months from now, we should do another podcast again. You know,
absolutely.
And yeah, we'll stay in touch. Now, I have to tell you one more thing. I did a presentation to a small group of people, about 20 people in the 40s or so, mid-40s, and they were all executives. And and I was supposed to talk about the lumber industry, and then there were two other guys talked about the lumber. And I said, I'm not going to talk about the lumber industry. I was the last speaker. But I get very involved, and you can well imagine, I'm very excited about all the things that I do. And when I make presentations, I do the same. So then I talked about books, and in particular about ADHD, and then talked about it as superpower. And then during that meeting, there were, I believe there were 3 people that put up the finger and said that I never told anybody, but I have ADHD as well. So I'll be getting now to the point, by the time I'm done with them, telling them what it is, there'll be several people in the room that say, darn, I wish I had it too.
Yes, yes. And you know, it's good that you're able to be able to do different things like that. With me, whenever I'm working with various different people, I try to stay as much on topic as I can. I tend to have my squirrel moments where I deviate, but that's okay. It kind of works out. It's added value in some form or fashion.
Makes you special.
I am a unique individual. Yes, I am.
You are. Krystal, it was a privilege to have you on our podcast. And let's make sure we stay in touch. I'm going to send you a copy of this book.
Okay. I look forward to it. Can't wait to read it.
Thanks, Krystal. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.